Welcome to Rewatch and Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before ranking each episode against each other. And today's episode is One Punch Man Ova episode 3, The Pupil Who is an Extremely Poor Talker. The episode in a nutshell is just a brief reminder of what happened within this episode. So the episode begins with Genos in a warehouse, facing down Don Pacino and his goons, as Don Pacino demands to know how he knows this other man in exchange for his keys, which he has taken from Genos. And then he makes the mistake of asking why the keys are so important. And this prompts Genos to tell him about the start of his day. He and Saitama went to a bathhouse, and while they're having a bath, Saitama wonders why when everybody gets into the bath they say when like e or oo or any other sound might actually be better off, but everyone always says instead. And this of course leads to him prompting Genos to try a different sound, but Genos notices no difference. So Saitama tries another sound and just says it doesn't feel right. Then he starts to, you know, add letters to the so instead of maybe saw, maybe fa. And before you know it, it turns into an actual like music note, like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So the fa, Genos says he has perfect pitch and his fa was a little off and starts coaching him to reach the fa note, but then it ends up the mi note. And then after they have a bath, while Saitama is in the massage chair, Genos has to leave, and so Saitama gives him the key. And that's how he got it, and that's why it's so important to him. And of course, Don Pacino is like, why did you just tell me this like extremely long story? I just want to know how you know this guy here. And Genos is like, I was just out shopping, we ran into each other, and Don Pacino then like demands the story. So we then find out, well, Genos and Saitama are out walking one day. Saitama is feeling a bit chilly and decides that they should have hot pot for dinner. And so after going through his pockets and looking at all his flyers, he notices, like he sees that there were some time limited deals. So Genos goes to try to get the sale at two separate supermarkets. However, as he's on his way to the one supermarket, he's using his cyborg vision to map out exactly how he's going to get to both sales at these two separate supermarkets when he happens to notice a disturbance to the side, and then tries to plan out if he goes to that disturbance, will he be able to make it for the sale, and he decides he can just make it. So he goes, defeats a villain. However, unfortunately, by the time he gets to the store, he has missed it by 1 second. And unfortunately, the clerk refuses to give him the deal anyways because, the whole point of a limited sale is that it's limited. And so he then goes to the second supermarket where the other sale is, only to find that it's been closed. This man that Don Pacino's after basically walks over and kind of stumbles, and Genos basically asks him, hey, why is the supermarket closed? They're supposed to be having a sale, and shows him the flyer. And the guy says that Don Pacino's moved into the area and they probably couldn't pay the fees, like the protection fees, and so have skipped town. And this, of course, is when Don Pacino arrives, picks up Genos's keys that he dropped when he had gone over to check on the man who stumbled, and that leads them to the present, where then Don Pacino is flabbergasted and is like, so this guy, you don't know this guy? And he's like, no, he's a complete stranger. And then Don Pacino is like, you've wasted so much of my time telling me these stupid stories. I'm going to kill you now. And I'm a C-class criminal. And that is when Genos realizes that they're the bad guys, and while he cannot fight back against good guys, which he had assumed Don Pacino was going to take his keys to a little police kiosk to give it to them so that he could retrieve them later, but now he realizes they're bad guys, so he then incinerates them before getting his keys back, and then we find out that this entire time he's been telling Saitama about how he got the keys back from Don Pacino, and that is where the episode ends. So now that we've rewatched and been reminded about the episode, it's now time to rank the episode on our two lists, the mostly objective ranking list followed by the personal ranking list. So, regrettably, much like the last episode, we haven't really, these are fun, comedic little snippets, which means that unfortunately they don't really have any character growth, they don't really have any character development, they aren't really related to the main plot in any way, they don't have subplots, they don't have battles, at least so far. So ultimately, unfortunately, there really wasn't much to say to about this episode that could be ranked. The only thing that applied is that obviously Don Pacino is a single episode supporting character that was brought in for the purpose of Genos telling his story. And that then leaves this episode with only a rank of 1 out of 10. And that brings our list so far to, on our mostly objective side, Road to Hero in first, A Shadow That Snuck Up Too Close in second, and then this episode is third, The Pupil Who Is an Extremely Poor Talker. And it's in last place because when more than one episode has the same score, they're just scored in episode order. So that now brings me to the personal ranking. And my personal ranking is obviously different from the objective ranking. It was a funny episode. However, ultimately, not a lot happened in it. I did, of course, get a chuckle. I really liked the bathhouse scene, though that really had nothing to do with anything. And then, well, I mean, he got his key after the bathhouse scene. Then, him telling Don Pacino and Don Pacino's reactions to being like strung along on these stories. And honestly, I don't think Genos is bad at storytelling. He just adds way too much not useful information and doesn't really get to the point of what he's being asked because he tells like the entire story leading up to the moment he was asked about. Like he was asked, "How do you know this guy?" And instead of just saying, "We ran into each other on the street while I was shopping and I asked him why the supermarket was closed," he tells it from the start of being assigned the errands, his little side quest, and then finally gets to the point where he met the guy, and I thought that was funny. I also found it hilarious that Genos, the entire time he's being held up by these obvious mobsters, thought that they were just nice guys who were going to give him his keys back, and if he hadn't run into him, have taken the key to a kiosk, like a police kiosk, to make sure it got back to its rightful owner, that is to say him. But as far as comedy goes, I didn't think that it was as funny as the last episode. And again, much like I said, because its main purpose was comedy, I gave it a 4 out of 10 because there was nothing negative or bad about it. It did make me laugh, but it wasn't to the same comedic quality as the previous episode. And that then brings our list to in first, A Shadow That Snuck Up Too Close, Road to Hero, and then this episode in third, The Pupil Who Is an Extremely Poor Talker. And that now brings us to the series rankings so far. As a reminder of mostly objective rankings so far, Season 1 ended with 88.33%, Season 2 with 74.17%, and the OVAs so far have earned 11 points out of 130. On the personal rankings side, we had Season 1 coming in at 76.67%, and Season 2 so far, Season 2 was at 65.83%, and the OVAs so far have earned 17 points out of a possible 120. So with that, we've now rewatched and ranked One Punch Man Ova Episode 3, The Pupil Who Is an Extremely Poor Talker. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.